Hi, everyone. Welcome to Aurelian Coaching Weekly. I'm Nicole Coustier, and I'm your host. Thanks for joining this week. This week, we are talking about how to talk about yourself. So the reason this came up is because I have a couple of people who I'm coaching through interviews, and they are really uncomfortable with what they're calling the self-promotional aspect of interviewing. They feel really uncomfortable talking about their accomplishments and selling themselves. Listen, the way I want you guys to think about this is less about selling yourself and self-promotion and more about positioning. Okay, you have a wealth of experience, you have strengths, you have things that you've done and qualities that you bring to the table, and it's just a matter of positioning them, ideally, for the opportunities that you have before you. Okay, so it's a slightly different connotation, and I think it works really well for some people. Okay, now, most often, the way you want to position or reposition yourself is because you are going for something that is new, so something you've never done before. It might be something that is just very different, right? So you have a wealth of experience in one area, you want to make a little bit of a pivot to do something different. How do you position yourself for that? Maybe it's internal. Maybe it's something that you're trying to go for a promotion, or you're trying to get a transfer to a different department. Maybe it's just networking. Maybe you just have to go to a conference and you're like, how do I position myself well? How do I talk about myself? So that is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, because we are talking about change, you are looking to do something new, better, different. The challenge that a lot of professionals have is that you have a wealth of experience. I work with mid-career professionals, so this means, 15 years under their belt, a lot of times more. And if you're trying to position yourself for something bigger, better, different, people feel tied down to their current role, their current title, the organizations that they've worked in the past. And so they're trying to comb through their entire work experience to find the little kernels of things that maybe they could leverage and position. Listen, I'm not suggesting that you don't talk about your previous work experience. Of course you do. But when you are trying to position yourself for something bigger, better, different, you need to give the other party an alternative way of evaluating you and considering you and determining your eligibility that is not exclusive to what you've done in the past. So, how do you do that? Okay, there are lots of different ways to do it. We're going to talk about one way today that I think is probably the easiest way. It might seem challenging, but in terms of getting a lot of traction very quickly, it's probably going to be the most effective way to give yourself new ways of talking about yourself, of positioning yourself, give yourself some new language to use that is not so exclusive to, oh, I'm a senior manager at so-and-so, and my job is validating blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine if you want to continue to be a senior manager validating blah, blah, blah. Okay, but if you want something else, how do you talk about yourself relative to something else? Okay, so this exercise is going to involve brainstorming. Okay, so if you have been with me for a while, you know that a number of times I get on my soapbox about brainstorming. So if there are people new to Aurelian Coaching Weekly, I'm going to give you a little preview. Brainstorming should not be filtered, okay? True brainstorming means you throw everything up on the wall, okay? And this is especially important when you are doing this exercise for yourself. People have the biggest filters when they talk about themselves, right? So I really encourage you to put all the filters away. This is what a good brainstorming exercise looks like. Half the stuff you write down, totally not relevant. Totally not relevant. But for the 75% of stuff that you ultimately reject, because during the brainstorming process, you open your mind, you allow your brain to do some free thinking, then you get the 25% of stuff that's really, really good. And you can actually use it and leverage in beautiful ways, okay? So that's my little soapbox about brainstorming again. Okay, so this is the question that I want you to ask yourself when you think about positioning yourself for change and for opportunities. I want you to ask yourself, who are you? Who are you as a professional? That's a big honking question. So let me break it down for you. There are 3 brainstorming exercises that I want you to do. So let me explain the exercises, and then I'll explain the rationale for why this works to position yourself well for change, okay? The first brainstorming exercise. So I want you to get a piece of paper out, and I want you to spend 5 minutes, 5 unfiltered, focused, uninterrupted minutes. It might not seem like a lot, but when you're sitting there waiting for something to come to your mind, it feels like a long time. Okay, 5 minutes, but make sure you don't have any interruptions and you're really focused. I want you to write down nouns. Nouns that describe who you are as an employee, as a contributor, as a team player, as a leader, as a manager. All of those things. Who are you? What nouns come to mind? Okay. If you go to the blog post this week, so you go to aureliancoaching.com, and on the very first page is this week's content, Position for Change. And there are lots of examples there, but you could say innovator, I'm a mentor, I'm a problem solver, I'm an advocate. Whatever nouns come to mind, and again, don't filter, right? What I don't want to see is people, say, oh, well, not always, or I don't know if I could really say that about myself. It didn't really apply that one time. Write it down. Write all of it down. Okay. Second question I want you to ask yourself is, what are you trying to accomplish with your career? That's another doozy of a question, right? Okay, I want you to brainstorm about this. Let me give you a couple of examples. I had a client whose work experience was all over the place. It was very disjointed. And he came to me because this was his ultimate challenge. He said, well, I don't have a common thread that goes through all of my past jobs. It just looks like I don't know what the heck I'm trying to do. And how do I position myself for an opportunity that I want that is, yet again, something new, something different? When we went through this exercise, what he found was what he's trying to accomplish with his career is that variety. He he spends like 2 to 3 years in a job, national parks, then going to nonprofits, then doing accounting for nonprofits, then doing accounting for corporate. Like, it's all over the place, because what he's trying to accomplish is he's trying to get breadth of experience. He wants exposure he wants to work for the government and see what that's like. Then he wants to work for nonprofits. Then he wants to work for profit. He just wants to experience. Well, that's cool. Why don't you own that? That's what he was trying to accomplish with his career. He wants a little taste of everything. Now, I have other clients who that is not what they're trying to accomplish. What they're trying to accomplish is they're always chasing after the shiny new thing, right? They always want to work on the cutting edge of whatever, right? So they don't want to work for, established companies. They are all about the startup culture. They want to say that they are working on something new, innovative, cutting edge. They want to be a part of that. And by the time that becomes established, they've lost interest. They're on to the next, right? That's what they are trying to accomplish. The innovation, being on the cutting edge of something. They want to be involved. They want to get their teeth into all that new stuff. For some of my clients, what they're trying to accomplish is actually very different. What they're trying to accomplish is stability, right? Stability, consistency, reliability, and not just for themselves and their families, although I'm sure that's part of it. They are trying to establish that for their teams, so that their teams have the freedom and the opportunity and the space to do what they do best. These are people who do not want to spend all their time putting out fires. Like, please no, okay? And in fact, they see their job as looking ahead. How do we mitigate those fires coming up? They're all about planning. They're all about reliability, consistency. What they want to achieve is a client's feedback, which is, oh, I never have to worry about you guys. I just set it and forget it. Because they have such confidence that the result is going to be consistent and reliable. That is what they're trying to achieve, regardless of whatever role they might have had, whatever their title is, whatever organization they might have worked for. That's what they're trying to accomplish, okay? So that's brainstorming exercise number 2. Again, 5 minutes, unfiltered, put it all on paper. You can filter it later. You ready for the third one? The third one is interesting. It's a different kind of challenging, because some people conflate it with the first exercise, where you're writing down nouns to just describe yourself as a professional. This third brainstorming exercise is, again, just 5 minutes. Write down qualities, behaviors, how you show up, what you bring to the table. So all the things that you've brainstormed earlier about, the nouns and what you're trying to accomplish, well, how does that actually manifest with your dealings with your coworkers and your supervisors and your clients? How do you show up? Okay, so I have one client, I might have mentioned him before. He's a client who came to me and he said, I always have the reputation for being the negative guy on the team. And he's like, I'm not negative, but I'm the guy who raises his hand and just does the gut check for the team. He's the guy that has the courage to raise his hand and say, guys, are we just all drinking the Kool-Aid here? Should we get some external validation? Oh man, I want that guy on my team, right? But that's how he shows up. Okay. I have another client who went through this exercise, and she's all about the creativity, right? So what she does is she tries to push the envelope in terms of how to get other people to be creative. She's a big fan of the unfiltered brainstorming, right? But those are different. How do you behave? How do you show up? Another example is I have a client who is master of standard operating procedures. I don't know how she does it, but magically she is able to write SOPs in a way that is crystal clear, super concise, and everybody follows them, like actually follows the SOPs. Wow, that's amazing. Okay. But those are the qualities that she brings to the table. Those are her behaviors, that's how she shows up. That's the manifestation of who she is as a professional and as a contributor. Okay. So that's the third brainstorming exercise. So at the end of all of this, what you have is some language. You have words, you have what you're trying, nouns, you have what you're trying to accomplish with your career, and then you have how you show up. That characterizes you as an individual, as a professional, that is not exclusively tied to what you've done in the past, right? And just to be clear, because in the past, my clients have conflated the first and the third brainstorming session. Think about it this way. The examples that I gave, both people can say that they're a problem solver in the first brainstorming exercise, right? They say, I'm a problem solver. I solve problems. Now, how does that manifest? In the third brainstorming session, one person says, well, I ask tough questions. I'm the person who, you can't solve a problem until you first illuminate the problem. But the other person says, no, that's not me. But what I bring is creativity. The way I solve problems is not just by assuming there's one way to do things, but what if there were all these other kinds of ways of doing things? Oh, that's very cool. So now you have 15 minutes of brainstorms. So what do you do now? Now you filter, right? Circle 3 to 5 things in each brainstorming category that feels pretty comfortable. And again, this is not about self-promotion. This is just stating who you are and what you bring. This is positioning over self-promotion. If self-promotion feels like that doesn't sit well with you. By the way, I have no problem with self-promotion. I think it's fine. You know, this is all semantics, but if you are in an interview situation and you just feel uncomfortable with this concept of having to toot your own horn and sing your praises and stuff like that, think about it in a different way. Think about it in terms of, no, this is who I am. This is how I show up. That's what I'm trying to accomplish with my career. And it's very factual. And it's a beautiful way, again, for the other party to say, oh, okay. So, you know, you are not exclusively this set of roles that you've had in the past. You're something bigger than that, right? And the results of these brainstorming sessions and the words and phrases that you ultimately circle can be leveraged in lots of different ways. Lots and lots, okay? For a lot of my people, when they're trying to do an industry pivot, or they're trying to think of, well, how do I take all this disjointed experience and really tease out what I want to present for a new job opportunity, I take those nouns and I put those right at the top of the resume, right? So, you know, I had somebody who, use 3 words, educator, advocate, self-starter. Those are the types of things that you start a resume with. It's just pow, right? This is who I am as a professional, okay? So you could use it for that. You could use it for your LinkedIn profile. If you haven't gone to your LinkedIn profile in a while and you want to kind of do a refresher, this exercise will give you so much beautiful language to use that is not limited to your job and is not doesn't feel like self-aggrandizing or embellished, right? You're not saying that you are the top blah, 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 blah. You're saying, no, this is who I am, right? So, it's actually funny. I was emailing a colleague of mine this morning. We were exchanging some emails. Karen Yankovich, she's a LinkedIn profile expert, and she's very, very good. You can go to KarenYankovich.com. She actually has a podcast this week that is along the same lines. We are tracking this week. But she also talks about how people feel uncomfortable, or it feels like bragging, right? And so this is a hot topic right now. And all I want people to consider is it's about positioning. It's not about, all these other self-aggrandizing things, right? But if you look at your LinkedIn profile, I believe that it defaults, like the headline on the profile defaults to your current title. You can change that, right? If you're trying to position yourself for opportunities, internal, external, networking, whatever, people are going to look at your LinkedIn profile, right? But if they say that, if the headline says, associate director, blah, 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 okay, well, then that's how they're going to think of you. And that's how they're going to, evaluate you, which might be fine. But again, if you're trying to position yourself for change, then don't have that default. Change the headline. Use some of those nouns that you brainstormed and that really resonate with you. Okay, now you're kind of distancing yourself from being evaluated for opportunities exclusively through what you've done in the past. Okay, so try it out. Guess what? Surprise, surprise. I have a worksheet for you guys, a 1-page worksheet that will walk you through this. If you're part of Aurelian Skill Masters already, you're going to get that worksheet tomorrow. Consistency, reliability, you're going to get the email and the worksheet every Friday. But if you aren't, and if you're interested in having a tool that actually walks you through the exercise and has some examples, and go to aureliancoaching.com, just go to the top, you can put in your email and your name, and make sure you do that today because this worksheet is going out tomorrow. So we'll slot you right in and do the exercise. I would love to hear what you come up with. Like reply to me, just tell me how it goes. Contact me, Facebook, whatever, Insta, LinkedIn, and tell me, what did you come up with? Do you want feedback on it? Did you go through the exercise and maybe it still didn't feel that comfortable and you need help getting over a hump? I don't know. I'll help you out. So go ahead and contact me, okay? So aureliancoaching.com, sign up for Skill Masters. You will get the worksheet tomorrow. Next week, what are we talking about next week? We're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to be talking about negotiation. I've talked about negotiation before. I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive in it. And I want to talk about negotiation just in our everyday lives, right? So it doesn't have to be super high stakes, right? But how do you think of negotiation in a very high EQ way? How do you apply emotional intelligence to negotiation to get what you want? And how do you come out of it not feeling like a jerk, basically, right? So how do you do it effectively? How do you do it in an authentic way? And how do you do it so you feel like you feel positive about having negotiated well. So that will be next week. Tune in then. Until then, have a great week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye now.